Hannah sat in the third row of the classroom, her fingers moving across the holographic screen in front of her. The lecture hall was massive, designed to hold students of all different sizes and shapes. Some sat on regular chairs like hers. Others floated in the air. A few needed special platforms because they were too large for normal seats. She had been studying at Galactic Academy Station, Helio 7, for almost 2 semesters now. At first everything seemed strange and frightening. The other students looked nothing like humans. Some had scales, some had feathers, some didn't even have faces she could recognize, but Hannah had learned to adapt. That was what humans did best after all. Professor Vilthar stood at the front of the room. He was an insectoid species, tall and thin with 4 arms and compound eyes that seemed to look everywhere at once. His voice clicked and buzzed, translated into different languages by the devices all students wore. Conflict resolution begins with understanding, the professor said, his mandibles moving as he spoke. When 2 parties disagree, violence should always be the last option. Today we will discuss de-escalation techniques used across different cultures. Hannah took notes carefully. This class was one of her favorites. Advanced combat theory and conflict resolution might sound boring, but it taught her so much about how different species thought and acted back on Earth. Humans only had to understand other humans. Here, she had to understand 40 different types of thinking. 2 rows ahead of her, she noticed Dayan shifting in his seat. He was a Pyronian, a species that came from a planet covered in volcanoes and lava fields. His skin looked like red and orange. Scales and heat shimmered around his body. Pyronians were known for having short tempers. Next to Dayan sat Jiwan, Cryosian from an ice world. His body was made of something that looked like blue crystal, and frost formed on the desk wherever he touched. Pyronians and Cryosians had a long history of not getting along. Their home planets had once gone to war over territory disputes. Your people don't understand honor, Dayan said suddenly, his voice cutting through the professor's lecture. Jiwan's crystalline body seemed to darken. At least my people think before they act. Pyronians are nothing but heat and rage. Professor Velthar stopped talking, his compound eyes focused on the 2 students. Dayan, Jiwan, please save your discussion for after class. But Dayan was already standing up. Heat waves rolled off his body, making the air around him shimmer and blur. Say that again, ice creature. Jiwan stood as well. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Frost spread across the floor from where he stood. You heard me. Your entire species is too stupid to control themselves. Hannah stopped taking notes. She watched carefully, her body tensing. Around the classroom, other students were backing away. Some looked excited, others looked worried. A few were recording on their devices. That is enough, Professor. Velthar moved toward the 2 students. His forearms spread wide. Sit down immediately, or I will call security. Dayan didn't sit. Instead, he shoved Jiwan hard. The Cryosian stumbled backward, his crystalline body making a sound like breaking ice. The shove triggered something in Jiwan, some kind of automatic defense response. His eyes began to glow bright blue. Then chaos erupted. Jiwan shot a blast of freezing air at Dayan. The Pyronian responded with a wave of fire. The 2 attacks met in the middle of the Classroom and exploded. Students screamed and dove for cover. Professor Velthar was thrown backward, his insected body hitting the wall hard. More students joined the fight. A massive Granathan student named Kian tried to separate them but got caught. In the crossfire, a group of Skybal students took to the air, their wings beating frantically. The classroom turned into a war zone in seconds. Hana remained seated, her eyes moving quickly across the scene. She calculated angles and distances. She watched how each student moved and reacted. Her heart rate stayed calm and steady. Across the room she saw Minji, a tiny Whisperling student. The Whisperlings were one of the most fragile species in the galaxy. They were small, delicate, and peaceful. Minji was frozen in fear, her large eyes wide with terror. A stray energy blast shot toward Minji. The small alien didn't even see it coming. Hana moved without thinking. One moment she was in her seat. The next she was across the room, pulling Minji down and out of the way. The energy blast hit the wall behind them, leaving a smoking crater. Minji stared up at Hana in shock. How did you move so fast? Hana didn't answer. She was already focused on the main fight. Dion and Jiwon were still going at each other, their attacks getting more dangerous. Other students were injured and crying out. Furniture was destroyed. The smell of burning and freezing filled the air. Dion charged at Jiwon with incredible speed. His claws extended, glowing red hot. He was going to kill the Cryosian. Hana could see it in his movements, in the rage that had taken over his thinking. She made a decision. Hana stepped between them just as Dion's clawed hand came down. The entire classroom seemed to hold its breath. She caught his hand, just caught. It's simple as that. One moment Dion was attacking with all his strength. The next his hand was stopped, completely held in Hana's grip. Classroom went silent. Even the injured students stopped moaning. Everyone stared. Dion's eyes went wide. He tried to pull his hand free. It didn't move. He tried again, putting all his strength into it. Hana's hand didn't budge even a little bit. What? Dion's voice came out as a whisper. What are you? Hana's expression changed. The friendly, quiet student that everyone knew disappeared. Something else looked out through her eyes. Something old and dangerous. Something that had survived when it should have died. Something that had climbed to the top of the food chain on a planet that tried to kill everything that lived there. That's enough, Hana said quietly. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the entire room. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a statement of fact. The fight was over because she said it was over. Behind Dion, Jiwon made a move. His crystalline hand formed into a sharp point aimed at Hana's back. He was going to stab her while she was distracted. Without turning around, without even looking, Hana's other hand shot backward and caught Jiwon's wrist. The Cryosian froze, shock replacing anger on his face. Hana now held both of them, a Pyronian known for incredible strength, Cryosian known for deadly precision. Both were helpless in her grip. She applied just a little bit of pressure. Both aliens gasped in pain and dropped to their knees. Hana hadn't even broken a sweat. Her breathing was still calm and steady. Kion, the massive Granison who weighed over 400 kg, stared in disbelief. Impossible, he whispered. She's restraining both of them at the same time. Sunwoo, a skyborn with enhanced vision that could see tiny details, watched Hana's muscles. She's not even trying, he said, his voice filled with shock. Look at her. She's not straining at all. The other students began to realize something important. Something that changed everything they thought they knew. Humans weren't weak. Humans weren't fragile. They had been wrong about everything. Professor Velthar recovered and stood up shakily. Security. He called into his communicator. We need security in Lecture Hall 7. Immediately. Hana released both students. They collapsed to the floor, gasping and holding their wrists. Already bruises were forming where her fingers had gripped them. Dark marks in the exact shape of a human hand. Dion looked up at her from the floor. His rage was gone, replaced by something else. Fear. Pure primitive fear. What are you? He asked again. What are you? Hana looked down at him. Then she looked around at all the other students who were staring at her. She saw the fear in their eyes, the confusion, the sudden realization that they had been sitting next to an apex predator and never knew it. She took a deep breath and let it out. Slowly. I'm human, she said simply. Just human. The silence in the classroom felt heavy and strange. Hana stood there, looking calm while everyone else stared at her like she was a dangerous animal that had just shown its teeth. She walked back to her desk slowly. Her movements were smooth and controlled. Every student she passed leaned away from her. Some actually left their seats and moved to the other side of the room. Hana tried not to let it hurt, but it did. She had come to Galactic Academy to learn, to make friends, to show that humans could fit in with the rest of the galaxy. Now everyone was afraid of her. Hana sat down and picked up her holographic note-taker. Her hands weren't shaking. She wished they were. At least then she would feel something other than the emptiness in her chest. Dion and Juan were still on the floor, holding their wrists. The bruises were turning darker. Purple and black marks stood out against Dion's red scales and Juan's blue crystal skin. Campus security arrived. 3 guards rushed through the door with weapons drawn. They were a species called enforcers, created specifically for security work. They big, strong, and trained for combat. The lead guard looked around at the destroyed classroom. What happened here? Professor Velthar's forearms gestured at the 2 students on the floor. Dion and Juan started fighting. It escalated to violence, involving multiple students. And who stopped it? The guard asked. Every single student pointed at Hana. The guard looked at her in surprise. The small human girl sitting quietly at her desk. You stopped a fight between a Pyronian and a Cryosian. Yes, Hana said simply. The guard didn't look like he believed. Sir. He turned to the other students. Is this true? She caught Dion's hand mid-strike. Kyung said, his rocky voice filled with disbelief. Then she caught Juan attacking from behind without even looking. She forced them both to their knees. The second guard shifted nervously. That's not possible. Humans are classified as weak species. Low strength, fragile bone structure. Minimal defensive capabilities. Your classification is wrong, Sun Wu said from where he hovered in the air. I watched her muscles. She wasn't even using her full strength. Not even close. The third guard raised his stun weapon. Slightly, it was pointed in Hana's General direction, but not quite at her. His hand was shaking. "Please put that away," Professor Velthar said. "The situation is under control." But the nervous guard's finger slipped. The stun weapon discharged with a bright flash of blue light. The energy bolt shot across the room, heading straight for Hana. Time seemed to slow down. Every student watched the bolt fly through the air. It was set to maximum power, enough to knock out a graniton. If it hit Hana, it would probably kill. Sorry. Hana's hand moved in a blur. She caught the energy bolt midair. It crackled and sparked in her palm. Blue electricity dancing across her skin. She held it for a moment, then squeezed. The energy dissipated, harmlessly absorbed into her hand. The classroom went so quiet that everyone could hear each other breathing. Hana looked at the guard who had fired. Her expression was mild, almost bored. "You might want to recalibrate those for human physiology," she said. That tickled. The guard's weapon fell from his shaking hands. He took several steps backward, his eyes wide. "Get them to medical," the lead guard said, his voice unsteady. He was pointing at Diana and Jaiwan, but his eyes never left Hana. "Everyone else, class is dismissed. The board will investigate this incident." Students practically ran for the door. They pushed and shoved to get out, some looking back at Hana with fear in their eyes. Within minutes, the classroom was empty, except for the guards, the professor, and Hana. "Miss Kim," Professor Velthar said quietly, "I think you should go back to your dormitory. The board will want to speak with you soon." Hana nodded. She gathered her things and walked toward the door. The guards moved aside quickly, making sure to stay far away from her. As she left, she heard one of them whisper, "What kind of world makes something like that?" The walk back to her dormitory felt longer than usual. Students who saw her coming would quickly cross to the other side of the hallway. Groups that were talking would go silent. As she passed, someone whispered "Death Worlder" behind her back. Hana's room was small but comfortable. She shared it with 2 other students. But they weren't there. They were probably in class. She sat on her bed and stared at her hands. These hands had helped other students with homework, had cooked food to share with new friends, had waved hello in the mornings and goodbye in the evenings. Now everyone knew what these hands could do. Across the station, the news was spreading fast. Students were sharing videos of the fight. The footage showed everything. Hana moving at impossible speed to save Minjai. Hana catching both fighters at once. Hana catching the stun bolt like it was nothing. In the science building, a student named Boyoung was watching the video for the 5th time. Boyoung was a cerebrite, a species known for their intelligence and love of research. The video didn't make sense to him. He pulled up Earth's file in the galactic database. The planet classification made him sit up straight. "Class 12 Death World," he read aloud. "High gravity, dangerous atmospheric conditions, extreme weather patterns, aggressive predator species. How is anything supposed to survive there?" He kept reading. The more he learned, the more shocked he became. Earth's surface was mostly covered in a corrosive liquid that dissolved most. No materials. The atmosphere had oxygen levels that would be toxic to many species. The planet experienced regular natural disasters that could wipe out entire cities, and humans had not just survived. There, they had thrived. They had become the dominant species, their apex predators. Boyoung whispered, playing nice. In the military strategy building, student named Nari was doing her own research. Nari was a tactician, a species bred for warfare and strategy. She was reviewing human history files. What she found made her blood run cold. Humans had been fighting wars for their entire recorded history, not just occasional conflicts but constant, continuous warfare. They had weapons that could destroy entire planets. They had created viruses that could kill billions. They had invented the concept of total war, where entire populations became targets. They weaponized everything, Nari said. To her roommate, everything. They turned atoms into bombs. They turned diseases into weapons. They even turned weather into a military tool. Her roommate, another tactician named Saman, looked over her shoulder at the screen. Are they still like this? According to this, they achieved global peace only 70 years ago, Nari said. That's nothing. That's a blink of an eye. These instincts are still fresh in them. In the biology lab, Hyunjin was running calculations. Hyunjin was a bioform, a species that could reshape their own bodies. He was fascinated by other species biology. The data on human physiology was shocking. Their bone density is 40% higher than the galactic average, he told his lab partner. Their muscle fibers are incredibly efficient. They have a response system called adrenaline that temporarily increases their strength and speed when they're threatened. Temporarily increases by how much? His lab partner asked. Hyunjin checked the numbers again. By up to 300%, and that's just average. Some humans can go even higher. That's not a survival adaptation, his lab partner said quietly. That's a weapon system. All across the station, students were learning the same terrible truth. Humans weren't the weak, fragile species they pretended to be. Humans were predators. Dangerous predators, and they had been hiding in plain sight. By evening, the social changes were obvious. In the cafeteria, Hana sat alone at a table. Other students would look at her, then quickly look away. Some pointed and whispered, others left the cafeteria entirely when they saw her. A student named Seojun, who had been friendly with Hana before, walked past her table. Hana smiled and waved. Seojun saw her, froze for a moment, then quickly walked to the other side of the room. Hana's smile faded. She looked down at her food tray. The food looked the same as always, but she couldn't taste anything. Everything felt like dust in her mouth. Her communicator buzzed. A message from her roommates. We're staying with friends tonight. Sorry, another message from a study group. We're canceling this week's session. We'll let you know about next week. Another from the student social committee. Your application for the cultural festival has been rejected. We'll explain later. Hana put down her communicator and pushed away her food tray. She wasn't hungry anymore. She left the cafeteria and walked through the station's common areas. Everywhere she went, she saw the same thing: fear, distrust, isolation. She found herself in the observation deck looking out at the stars. Earth was too far away to see from here. But she knew where it was. She imagined she could see it, that small blue and green marble that had created her. I'm sorry, she whispered to the distant Planet, I tried. Behind her, she heard footsteps. She turned to see Minjun, a small, flitterling student. Flitterlings were one of the weakest species in the galaxy, small and delicate like birds. Minjun hesitated, then approached her. Slowly. Hannah, you shouldn't be near me, Hannah said quietly. Haven't you heard? I'm dangerous. You saved Minjai, Minjun said, when that energy blast was going to hit her. You moved faster than anyone could see. You saved her life. Hannah didn't say anything. Thank you, Minjun said, for stopping the fight before anyone died. For 3 days had passed since the fight. Hannah had spoken to the board. Investigators answered their questions and shown them the video evidence. They concluded she had acted in self-defense and to protect others. No charges were filed, but that didn't change how the other students treated her. She walked to class alone. She ate lunch alone. Her roommates had officially requested transfers to other rooms. In the hallways, students would see her coming and quickly find reasons to go the other way. Hannah told herself it didn't matter. She came here to study, not to make friends. She could do her work, graduate, and go home. That was enough, but she was lying to herself, and she knew it. On the 4th day, Hannah was walking through the station's central plaza when she heard shouting. She almost kept walking. Getting involved in other people's problems was what had caused all this trouble in the first place. But she couldn't ignore it. That wasn't who she was. She followed the sound to a quiet corridor near the engineering building. There she found Minjun backed against a wall. 3 larger students surrounded him. She recognized them. T-Hyun, a Ravager species known for being bullies, and his 2 friends. Give us your research data, T-Hyun was saying. The project is due tomorrow, and we're not going to fail because we're too lazy to do the work. No, Minjun said, his voice shaking but firm. I worked hard on that. Do your own work. T-Hyun grabbed Minjun's bag. Wrong answer, little bird. Other students were walking past. They saw what was happening. Some looked uncomfortable, others just looked away and kept walking. Nobody stopped to help. Hannah felt something hot and angry burn in her chest. This was exactly the kind of thing she hated, the strong picking on the weak. Because they could, because nobody would stop them. She walked up to the group. Leave him alone. T-Hyun turned around and saw her. A big smile spread across his face. Well, the scary human we've been hearing all about. You. Then you should know to walk away. Hannah said calmly. Oh, we heard about your trick in class, T-Hyun said. He was trying to sound brave, but Hannah could see the nervousness in his eyes. Catching people off guard, fighting. Dirty, but there are 3 of us. You really think you're tough enough? I'm asking nicely, Hannah said. Once or what? T-Hyun pushed her shoulder. Or tried to. Hannah didn't move. It was like he had pushed a wall. What are you going to do? Hannah didn't answer. She just stood there waiting. T-Hyun's nervousness turned to anger. He didn't like being embarrassed in front of his friends. He swung his fist at Hannah's face. She moved her head slightly. His fist passed by her ear, missing by less than an inch. He was off balance now, his momentum carrying him forward. Hannah just stepped aside and let him stumble past her into the wall. His 2 friends attacked together. One came from the left, one from the right. They were trying to grab her arms. to hold her still so Taehyung could hit. Sorry. Hana dropped low, bending her knees. Both attackers missed and crashed into each other. She stood up between them, not throwing a single punch. Taehyung recovered and charged at her. Again, this time aiming low to tackle. Sorry. Hana waited until the last second, then pivoted her hips. She guided his momentum with her hands, redirecting him into the wall again. He hit hard and bounced off. The other two came at her again, more careful this time. They were circling, trying to find an opening. Hana just turned slowly, keeping both of them in her vision. One lunged. Hana leaned back, letting him pass. Other tried to sweep her legs. She hopped over the sweep easily. They both ended up on the ground, tangled together. Taehyung was breathing hard now. All three of them were. They had been attacking for less than a minute, but they were already tired. Hana's breathing hadn't changed at all. A crowd had gathered. Students were watching from a safe distance, recording everything on their devices. She hasn't thrown a single hit. Someone whispered. She's just dodging everything, another student said. Look at them, they're exhausted. She's not even trying. Taehyung realized it too. He was tired, embarrassed and scared. This isn't over, he said, trying to save face. He and his friends backed away, then hurried off. Hana turned to Minjun and helped him pick up his scattered belongings. Are you okay? Yes, thank you, Minjun said. His eyes were wide. You didn't hurt them? I didn't need to, Hana said simply. But you could have, Minjun said. Everyone saw it. You could have hurt them badly, but you chose not to. Hana shrugged. Violence should be the last choice. That's what Professor Velthar taught us. Remember, more students were gathering now, watching the video footage on their devices. Hana could hear them talking. Did you see that? She didn't attack once. She just dodged and redirected. Pure defense, but the control, the precision. She knew exactly where they would be. That's scarier than if she had just beaten them up. Hana walked away from the crowd. She didn't want to hear any more. She just wanted to go somewhere quiet and be alone. But Minjun followed her. Wait, Hana, she stopped and turned around. Thank you, Minjun said. Not just for now, for showing us that strength doesn't mean violence. My people are weak. We've always been afraid of stronger species, but you're strong and you chose not to hurt them. That means something. Hana felt that warm feeling in her chest. Again, you're welcome. That evening, the video went viral across the student network. Everyone was watching it and talking about it. The comments were different this time. She had 3 attackers and didn't throw a punch. Pure defensive technique. Impressive control. Maybe humans aren't as dangerous as we thought. No, they're more dangerous. She could have killed them easily, but chose not to. That's controlled power. That's discipline. In her dorm room, Hana received a message from the dean's office. Dean Thoris wanted to see her tomorrow morning. Hana felt her stomach tighten. This couldn't be good. The next morning, she walked to the administrative building. Other students stared at her, but some of them nodded respectfully, instead of looking away in fear. It was a small change, but Hana noticed it. Dean Thoris' office was impressive. The walls were covered in artifacts from thousands of worlds. The dean herself was an eternal, a species that lived for Thousands of years she had seen civilizations rise and fall. Sit down, Hannah, the dean said. Her voice was gentle but carried weight. Hannah sat. Am I in trouble? No, Dean Thors said. You defended yourself and another student. You showed remarkable restraint. But we need to talk about the situation you've created. I didn't mean to create any situation, Hannah said. I just reacted. I know, the dean said, but intentions don't change results. You've revealed something about humanity that many weren't ready to learn. That we're strong, that you're dangerous, the dean corrected. There's a difference. Many species are strong, but humans are predators from a death world. Your planet tried to kill you for millions of years and you survived. You thrived. You became the apex predator. That frightens people. Hannah looked down at her hands. I can't change what I am. I'm not asking you to, Dean Thors said. I'm asking you to help us understand. Earth has been applying to join the Galactic Council for decades. Your people want to be part of the greater galaxy, but many council members are afraid of what humans might do with that membership. What do you mean? They fear humans will become dominant through force. Dean said that you'll conquer rather than cooperate. Your actions in that classroom and then in the corridor, they've made that fear worse for some, but for others they've shown something different. What? Control, the dean said. Power tempered by choice. You could have hurt those students badly, but you chose not to. That shows more strength than violence ever could. Hannah didn't say anything. She didn't know what to say. I have a proposal, Dean Thors said. In 2 weeks we have cultural demonstration week. Every species shows their history, their culture, what makes them unique. I want you and the other human students to present humanity, the real humanity, not the peaceful explorers you've been pretending to be. The truth, the truth, Hannah repeated. Your violence and your compassion, your wars and your art, your destruction and your creation. Everything that makes humans what they are. Show them the whole picture, not just the parts you think they want to see. What if they hate us more after that? Then they were always going to hate you, Dean Thors said. But if they understand you, really understand you, then maybe they'll see what I see. What do you see? The dean smiled. It was a strange expression on her alien face, but somehow it looked kind. A species with the potential for great violence that chooses peace. Warriors who fight to protect the weak. Predators who show mercy. That's rare in this galaxy, Hannah. Rarer than you know. Hannah left the office with a lot to think about. 2 weeks to prepare a presentation about humanity. 2 weeks to show the galaxy who humans really were. She found the other 2 human students on the station, Yuna and Sungho. They met in a quiet study room to talk. The dean wants us to do what? Sungho asked. Show them the truth about Earth and humans, Hannah repeated. Everything, the good and the bad. That's going to scare them even more. Yuna said. Maybe, Hannah said, or maybe it will help them understand. We've been trying to hide what we are. Maybe that was the wrong approach. What do we show them? Sungho asked. Our history is full of terrible things. The 3 human students spent every free moment preparing for the presentation. They gathered information about Earth's history, culture, and achievements. But they also included the dark parts. The wars, the genocides, the mistakes that nearly destroyed their species. We can't just show them the good parts. Hana said as they worked, they need to see all of it. Yuna was organizing historical data. This is going to be hard to watch. Some of this stuff is brutal. Earth is brutal, Sungho said quietly. Maybe that's what they need to understand. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to be strong because we had no choice. As word spread about the presentation, students began approaching Hana. Some were curious. Others wanted to help. A few still avoided her, but the number was getting smaller. Min Jun was the first to offer help. I can help with visual displays, he said. My species is good with technology. Then Qiang, the massive Granathin, approached her in the cafeteria. You scared me, he said bluntly. But you also saved Minji. I want to understand why you did that. Why a predator species would protect someone weak. Because it's the right thing to do, Hana said simply. Qiang sat down at her table. It was the first time anyone had voluntarily sat with her in days. Tell me about human warriors. Your people must have great warriors. Hana thought about it. We do, but our greatest warriors aren't always the ones who fight. Sometimes they're the ones who protect, who heal, who teach. I don't understand. You will, Hana said. After the presentation, more students joined them. Sunwoo the Skyborn landed at their table. My people respect strength. You have strength, but you control it. That's worthy of respect. A mind weaver named June approached. Carefully, may I ask you something? Yes, Hana said. That day in class, I tried to read your thoughts. Just for a moment, June looked uncomfortable. I saw something that frightened me, something old and dangerous, but also something protective. What did I see? You saw what humans are, Hana said. We're predators, but we're also protectors. Both things are true at the same time. The group working on the presentation grew. Soon there were 10 students, helping from different species. They wanted to understand humans better, and slowly they were becoming friends with the 3 human students, but not everyone was happy about it. Jihan was a sovereign, a species that had been the dominant military power in this sector for centuries. Sovereigns were used to being the strongest, the most feared. The idea of humans being more dangerous than them was unacceptable. He gathered other students who felt the same way. We can't let them give this presentation, Jihan said to his group. If they show the council what humans really are, if Earth joins the Galactic Council, they'll challenge our position. What do you propose? Asked one of his followers. We stop them, Jihan said. We make sure their presentation fails. 6 days before the presentation, Hana found a message on her door. It was written in standard galactic script. Go home, human. This isn't your place. She stared at it for a long moment, then took a picture and kept working. 3 days before the presentation, the study room where they kept their research was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but everything was scattered and disorganized. It took them a full day to sort everything out again. The night before the presentation, disaster struck. Hana woke up to urgent messages from Yuna and Sungho. All our files are gone, Yuna's message said. Someone hacked into the system and deleted everything. Hana rushed to meet them in the study room. Sungho was frantically trying to recover The data. It's all gone. Months of work. Every file, every video, every piece of information we gathered, all deleted. Can you restore it? Hana asked. No. Sung-ho said, whoever did this knew what they were doing. They didn't just delete the files. They destroyed them completely. Yuna sat down heavily. It's over. We can't do the presentation without the data. We have nothing to show them. Hana looked at both of them. She felt the same despair they did. Months of work gone. Their chance to show humanity's true nature stolen. Then she remembered something her father had told her before she left Earth. The most important things aren't stored in computers, they're stored in hearts. What? Yuna looked up. We don't need the files, Hana said. We know our own history, we lived it, we carry it with us. You want us to present from memory? Sung-ho asked, in front of thousands of people with no visual aids. Yes, Hana said. We tell them our story, not with videos and data, with our words, with our hearts. We show them what it means to be human, not by explaining it, but by being it. Yuna and Sung-ho looked at each other. Then Sung-ho nodded slowly. You're right. The best way to show them who we are is to just be who we are. We've been preparing this presentation for weeks, Yuna said. We know what we want to say. We don't need computers to tell our own story. They spent the rest of the night preparing, not by building presentations or organizing data, but by talking, by remembering, by sharing stories about Earth and humanity. Morning came too quickly. The amphitheater was massive, designed to hold over 3,000 students and faculty. Every seat was filled. People were standing in the aisles. News had spread across the station about the human presentation, and everyone wanted to see it. Hana, Yuna, and Sung-ho stood backstage, waiting for their turn. They could hear the murmur of the crowd, the excitement and nervousness. I'm scared, Yuna admitted. Me too, Sung-ho said. Good, Hana said. Being scared and doing it anyway, that's courage. That's human. The announcer called their names. They walked out onto the stage. Amphitheater went quiet as 3,000 beings stared at them. Hana looked out at the crowd. She saw Kiying and Sunwoo sitting together, Minjun and Minji in the front row, Joan the mind weaver, dozens of students they had met and talked to over the past weeks. She also saw Yi-hoon sitting in the front row, his arms crossed. He was smiling. He thought he had won, that without their data they would fail. Hana smiled back. Then she stepped forward to speak. We came here today to show you who humans are, she began. Her voice was steady and clear. We prepared videos and data and presentations, but last night someone destroyed all of it. There was a gasp from the crowd. People turned to look at each other. So instead, Hana continued, we're going to do something harder. We're going to tell you our story, just 3 humans standing on the stage talking about where we come from and who we are. No hiding behind technology, no carefully edited videos, just the truth. She gestured to Sun-ho. He stepped forward. Let me tell you about Earth, Sun-ho said. Our home, the place that made us what we are. He began to describe Earth, not with data points and statistics, but with words that painted pictures. He talked about ice ages that covered continents, volcanoes that turned the sky black, hurricanes that destroyed cities, earthquakes that split the ground open. Life on Earth doesn't just exist, Sun-ho said. It fights, every single day. Every single moment, nothing is given. Freely, everything must be earned. Crowd was silent, listening. Yuna stepped forward next. Let me tell you about human evolution. She said, about how we became what we are. She talked about early humans, about running for days to chase prey, about learning to throw rocks with deadly accuracy, about discovering fire and tools and weapons. We were prey once. Yuna said, things hunted us, things killed us, but we didn't give up. We didn't hide, we fought back. We learned, we adapted. And eventually, we won. The crowd shifted. Uncomfortably, this wasn't the gentle, peaceful humanity they had expected to hear about. Then Hana stepped forward. Now let me tell you about our history. She said, this is the hard part, the part we're not proud of. She told them about wars, about humans killing other humans over land, resources, beliefs. She told them about weapons designed to cause maximum suffering, about hatred and cruelty, and the worst things humans had ever done. We have hurt each other in ways that would horrify you. Hana said, we have been monsters to our own kind. The crowd was very quiet now. Some students looked disturbed. Others looked vindicated, as if their fears about humans were being confirmed. But Hana said, her voice rising slightly, that's not the end of our story. Because the same species that created such horror also created something else, something beautiful. She began to talk about human compassion, about love, about sacrifice, about people running into burning buildings to save strangers, about doctors traveling to war zones to heal anyone who needed help, about teachers spending their own money to help students learn. We know what violence is, Hana said. We know it better than most species. And that's exactly why we value peace. We've seen what happens when the strong hurt the weak, when power is used without compassion, when strength has no purpose except to dominate. She paused and looked around the amphitheater. We're not perfect, she said. We never will be. But every day we try to be better. Every day we choose to protect instead of destroy, to build instead of tear down, to help instead of hurt. That's what makes us human.